All right, what's up, guys? This is another episode of Muay Thai Chat. I'm Pete. This is part of the official Muay Thai review, or the Muay Thai officials review on the YouTube channel. And coming off of a interesting podcast last night with Cruz Corner with Tiago, Brandon, and Ryan, and the guests were myself and Master Bob, Carmel, and Johnny Davis, the founder creator of the IKF PMT, PKBs, and PK. Point boxing. So I have the guest today is Jonathan Pu'u. He was on the podcast last night, just backstage, taking part in everything, but not showing on the screen, not commentating, but or chiming in. But he had comments to make, and we talked about a little bit after that. And I wanted to just come on today and dive a little deeper into this. It's a very hot topic. The topic being, should semi-contact matches count on a fighter's record? And the podcast last night with Cruz Corner was about an hour and a half, almost, maybe longer. And it, I like Johnny Davis. I had no quarrel with him at all, or the IKF, or their platform for the point Muay Thai and point kickboxing. But I got to say, there was a lot left out of the conversation last night that was relevant to the topic, because we kept hearing about Johnny's background and his accolades. So I want to just talk about the topic itself and dive in deep to this and really analyze it a lot further, because I'm going to have my own supporters and he has his supporters, and there's a lot left in between that neither of the supporters are seeing. So with that said, Jonathan Pu'u, can you give us an intro on yourself and your background, buddy?
Awesome. Yes, Pete, thank you so much. And definitely there was a lot that was untouched on that. And it's becoming a very hot topic in the Muay Thai community, which is good. There's some great conversations happening, right? So I've been involved in Muay Thai for 17 years. Fought amateur, fought professional under Dej Nakui Sirampai. He's a former, I think he was the head ring official for WBC Muay Thai for like a technical operations, especially here in North America. So he's my mentor. So I was studying under him for a very long time, fought a little bit professionally. And I've worked with just about every Muay Thai organization in North America, and including some in Europe and stuff as well. And joining you with WBC Muay Thai USA, along with that, from continuing with what I was doing with my mentor at the time. And we also have a team, Pu'u Muay Thai Academy, that's now coming up on its 10-year anniversary, where we have amateur, we have professionals, traveled all around the world competing with that, and continue to do that as well under our chief instructor. I'm more hands-off with it now. And that's it. We also have one of the biggest Muay Thai podcasts for information content.
Right.
So, Pete, thanks again for having me on. And that's just a little bit about what I do. And I've written books and stuff like that too. You guys just Google my name. You can find it.
So you're a star.
No, just we need to document stuff. Yeah, we need to document stuff. Yeah.
So you being from California, you're in that area for quite a while. Is your gym? You have another gym still there, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I was co-owner for Pu'u Muay Thai Santa Barbara, which we still have. It's a full ownership under Ryan Ughawk. They're out there in Santa Barbara, California, and then we have Pu'u Muay Thai in Ventura, which I'm the 100% owner of. That we operate with an amazing team that's over there. So they're still in California as well.
Gotcha. So you've had experience over the years with the IKF point Muay Thai circuit, point kickboxing circuit. They're all over California.
Absolutely. And I first got introduced to it with Robert Aldama. He was working along with them, and I'd heard about them, and I brought some of the kids to them. Like, this is great. It's a semi-contact thing, right? I learned that it wasn't a semi-contact thing. What I was being sold, and what it was, I was like, oh, this is just like this was like a smoker.
Right.
And I brought these kids to it, and I felt pretty terrible, kind of shitty, because it's like, that's not what we were training for, right? We adapted and stuff like that too, and I've seen modifications and improvements with them throughout the years as well. But yeah, a lot of experience with them with IKF. I had talked with them a lot and seen when they got delegation in California, and I believe Brian Dobler was trying to get TBA SA.
At that time, he was
there. Yeah, so there was a lot of moving parts there, and I kind of saw this going through my mentor, because he was working in California with California State Athletic Commission and training them. So I got to meet all those people and see all this stuff kind of go down. And we've participated in Point Muay Thai events. I see some of the benefits that they were trying to promote on it.
Absolutely.
And it gave opportunities because we didn't have smokers anymore, right? So we kind of used it as that avenue. But
yeah, I mean, it is. Last night I think Johnny was outnumbered in the battle there, but the debate. But as far as people on this side or that side, but you can't deny he's created a great platform for fighters to get work.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of what are we counting, what are we not counting, and last night when we talked, it was interesting. There were things brought up, contradictions made. And I had a chance to rewatch it this morning off the YouTube, and I was finally seeing the live comments, and they were all IKF people, which is fine. I totally understand that. And they weren't bad, but they just weren't quite understanding, I didn't mention last night in the podcast. I kept mentioning our tournament because Johnny was getting on me, but even USMTO, they've had to go in depth with vetting fighters as well. They're they've pushed 400 and 500 athletes in their tournaments, and that's not 100, 200. It's easier to manage. That's a lot, and they're closer to California. So a lot of the California, as Bob alluded to last night, a lot of the California fighters coming off of PMTs and PKBs go into USMTO one state away, and they're not counting stuff in the record, and it becomes a problem.
100%.
So the topic is semi-contact. And that's what I want to discuss first. We didn't get that much into it last night. We got sidetracked. But Johnny's statement is semi-contact. Should semi-contact count as a fight on your record? And we have to first define what semi-contact is, right? Some people, I've heard some organizations say, we only go 40%. Well, what is 40%? How do you establish what 40% is when everyone's size is different? Even in a full contact, we'll call it that, full contact fight, a sanctioned fight, you can have the same fighters, the same weight class, same experience, but one with their physical makeup hits harder.
Oh, 100%.
And one cannot. Yeah. So the percentages there on level of semi-contact or full contact are different, right? Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And I think you could probably speak on this you have a lot more years of martial arts on me and teaching, but it's like you tell somebody 20% and you see them hit them like, whoa, show me what you feel 20%. Like, yeah, it's more like 80, dude. Like here's 20%, right? And you have to like show them. So it's really hard when they say like percentage wise, and especially for beginners, because you're a martial artist, you're learning control, right? So not everybody has that control, and they're just learning it when they're going to these kinds of events too.
Right, exactly right. Which the fight one of the videos we'll see in a little bit with the two young girls. I know the one that was really, really hitting hard. She was it was her first fight, and she was trained to get in there and go and get that W. And she just threw the fences and was headhunting, and it was we'll see. It was not semi-contact even for a young 8-9-year-old girl. And so the percentages we know are skewed. That can't be established and maintained. And then you look at, we're not intending to go to knockouts. The rule is no knockouts. Yeah. So semi-contact, we've established what really is that. There's no way to establish semi-contact versus light contact and full contact. Yes. In the whole scheme of things, right? That's consistent across the board.
Well, it's funny about that. There was actually a lot of conversation on this in California back when mixed martial arts was being sanctioned, because there was a judge at the time that said that a choke was designated as full contact. So they were trying to regulate Brazilian jiu-jitsu and judo at the time and saying that was full contact, right? So, and then you get into stuff, there was like youth pancreation had some issues and stuff like that too. Even though they do no head contact, it's still considered full contact, right? Right. So that, just to give some preface, I'm sure you probably are aware of some of this stuff too, or maybe you're not, but
not that far. No.
Yeah, it's a very big topic. And it goes into like, and a lot of them are, the reason I met a lot of them, they're like, hey, how are you guys allowed to do this in Muay Thai in California, but we can't do this, right? I was like,
right.
huh, you got me. Like, you got me. Like, I don't know. That's above my pay grade, man.
It's two different sports and two different ways to win. You submit or you outstrike. You know what I mean? So you could say that the striking side is more physically damaging, or just looks more violent, but the choke can still put you to sleep. I mean, so they both are damaging in their own right. And I think the state was trying to figure out a balance there, correct? And to even them out?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is like even pro wrestling, I believe, is regulated in the state of California by CSAC. So
really?
I truly, like, for me, honestly, this is my personal opinion. It's no organization's opinion. It's money. Like, it's money in politics is what it is. Because that's what anything is with the boxing commission. They want to hear how an organization can make them money, right? It's additional revenue. So for anybody that didn't know that, now you know. And so I think they saw the opportunity to be able to do that. And there's a lot of people in the martial arts community who really fought a lot against that. And I have a feeling that, like, you know, the IKF and all the other organizations that were actually, because they're trying to prevent it from getting overly regulated in a sense too, right? So I believe there's a fine line there, right? So that's kind of what's brought up a lot of this debate and this conversation in the community, because now it's created a self-regulating issue rather than a government regulated issue, which is a good problem to have. I'll say that. Yeah.
Right. So we talked about that. We talked about the level of contact, and we talked about the other portion of that, which is the no knockout. So when you look at the PMTs, I'll just go with PMTs. We're Muay Thai guys, not PKBs. Okay. Yeah. So the PMTs, the rule is no knockouts to semi-contact, yet there's a winner and a loser. So it's, I mean, to me, it's obvious that when we talk about intent, when you are trying to win, there's intent to win. And sometimes, as Johnny said, when there's intent to win and the level intensifies, accidents can happen. And they even happen in the other scrimmages that are really low, like MDLs or TBSA scrimmages or NMTAs or even WKA scrimmages that are happening now. There are a lot of different ones around the country happening, and that can happen to any of them. But though it's a lot less because there's no incentive to win. And I'll get to my root of the cause here in a minute. That wasn't being acknowledged last night by one party. So we know that knockouts happen. You and I have shared some videos just in the last couple of days here of knockouts happening in PMTs. Yes. And last night, Johnny said there's tens of thousands, only 15. Well, I don't believe there's only been 15. And he said he has the stats. Well, then somebody's not giving him the stats. I mean, I can think of a couple dozen myself just in the last couple of years, and this has been going on for 20 years, he said. So, while I agree it's a small number in comparing to how many of their fights there are, and you could tell me more than I could tell you because I've not experienced a lot of these. I've only seen things. But I would venture to say, giving him the benefit of the doubt, that a higher percentage of those matches are controlled the way he envisions them to be. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say a majority. And like I said, I don't think there's any like ill intent, anything like that.
It's just some
what it comes down to is like having somebody that knows what they're doing, that's maybe at the events. Like I've been there where it's the two brothers, Hodges brothers, like they've run them and they had a great event. Like it was great. And I've been to other ones where there are people that I didn't recognize, and shit was getting squirrely. So that's just like one of those checks and balances. And with growth, as you know, like in business, you have growing pains, right? So there's that to consider too.
That's what I want to get to more in depth also here in a little bit is the background of that. And so we know we've seen knockouts, and the fighters have been DQ'd for that, but that doesn't stop it from happening. And there's no denying that when that match happened, that knockout happened, even though it was against their rules, that was still the format of a fight.
Yeah.
There was not a scrimmage with semi-contact. It was a fight. So it comes down to what consistency and how we're counting things. So I think there was some confusion last night too for Johnny and how what it means when we say we count them on the record. So he's right. They're counted as experience in different categories. And some of the comments last night on the live on YouTube were, no, guys, they're counted in the categories. They count, but they're categories. That's true. But those categories all go into determining if they are going to be in C, B, or A in the class system, right? And I know IKF only in the last few years adopted that class system. And in fact, Steve, before he passed, and Pam had many discussions, many times we've had discussions on different things. And one of them was that. And he thought we were doing a great job with the class when we developed or established TBSA tournaments. And that was part of what led him to want to redirect to classes. He used to have a novice and an open, and above 4 fights was wide open. It just wasn't working. So anyway, back to this. So how do they count? We don't count a PMT on a sanctioned record, but it's in a category in its own, but it's counted to go into CB or A.
Yes.
Because as we said last night, and I know you agree to this, if you've got, it goes both ways. If you got a 15-fight PMT guy with nothing else on his record, and he goes into novice against an 0-0 person, legit 0-0, nothing at all on their record, he has a distinct, serious advantage over that 0-0 fighter.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
We even see people in MDLs. My kids, I've seen grow tremendously from having all these MDL scrimmages.
Yes.
Right. But they've had to back down and go very light at times. They've had to go with very taller, older, or bigger weighted opponents very times, or even smaller and go back boys to girls even and back down in power. But just the experience of doing that and the grading system they're evaluated on has led to their advancement and their skill.
Yes.
And they're better, more prepared.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on that too, like I've seen that same thing at the PMTs as well, where the referee does, and when it's somebody who's experienced, and they taught them, hey, you need to tone it down a little bit, otherwise we're just going to stop it. I want you to get work. I want him to get better, right? So, but what it comes down to is because there's the winner and loser intent, right? Yes. Whereas some of these other scrimmages, it's based upon, hey, they get a great like a scorecard essentially for themselves, like a report card.
Right.
Of like, hey, your balance, your technique, your sportsmanship, these things, your control. So it gives it a different perspective for people. And I can say this as a coach that when they started doing the no head contact stuff for youth, I was all about it. And that's when my youth program started freaking booming. Yeah. It's when we had those opportunities. Yeah. So because it's like, hey, we can do no head contact stuff. I think some of the PMTs, I think they've done some no head contact, or they give it as an option.
Oh, do they really? I didn't know that.
I want to say that there was. I don't know if that's was like official thing, or if it's just like, hey, it was this event, people wanted to do it, so they said okay. Yeah. But I've seen modifications across the board on every one of these, the ABCs of events that hold these things. So it's one of those things to consider too. But definitely, it's not the standard, right?
Right. Where was we on that? Part. Oh, the counting thing. And so, no, it's not going to count on your record, right? But it has to count to something. And as you said, the incentive to win, lose. So when we try to figure this out, we as TBSA, for example, I can't speak for everybody else. I want to speak for ourselves. Yeah. As the tournament grows so much, we had different states trying to get around the commissions and having these in-gym sparring events where they would sell tickets or donate. They'd have judges, they'd do, winners, but it was different things. And well, do you count those? And some comments last night were, are you going to count sparring matches too? Well, some gyms spar as hard as a fight and many gyms don't, so there's all those variances too. So no, you can't count those. And when you talked about last night, we talked about, well, you might as well count Kyokushin and Taekwondo and these other point karate and point systems and point systems or events. No, they're not the same thing. Muay Thai is specific. I think you would agree. Our stance, our ring sportsman or ring generalship, our strategy, our weapons, the way we employ them weapons, the whole structure is different than a karate or taekwondo format. And those fighters, though they may go full contact in their format, that's not equal to a Muay Thai format, in my opinion, from what I've seen guys do. Not saying a taekwondo high-level athlete cannot do well in a Muay Thai tournament. They can, but the majority I've seen over the years come in and try, they don't do well. Mm-hmm. They're not used to the same format. So you really can't count all of those. If you took a guy with 100-point karate full contact fights from back in the day and he won 80 of them by knockout, he'll be an A class if you counted those. And A class is open class with amateurs and pros. What if that fighter in A class against him only has 40 or 50 fights, but he's had world championships, he's been in Thailand training in the stadiums? That traditional guy is going to get his ass whooped. I'm sorry. Unless a lucky shot comes in. You can look at a Muay Thai guy, the famous fight with Rick Rufus and the Thai fighter. When Rick Rufus was the world champion kickboxer in 2 different weight classes, I think. I watched him a lot in the early 90s. And he had a Muay Thai fight. Got his ass
changed
whooped.
The game. Yeah, changed his training routine.
When he decided his leg, he took his leg out by the 3rd round, you know. And Rick started training Muay Thai after that.
Yep.
His brother Jeff, we know Duke, he was doing Muay Thai before that, while Rick was doing more of the full contact and the K1 stuff. And so you just can't compare the styles itself. But when you look at boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, kickboxing, even pancration, they're the same similar type combat sports as far as the striking side goes, right? So you have to compare those the same manner. And now you have the point Muay Thai. Well, with whether the level of contact is supposed to be lighter or not, you're going for a win or a loss. So you're incentivized to go harder, faster, more intense. You're not just playing and working on things. You're going and you have a chance to test things and work on things, develop things. The referee's not going to say, hey, you're killing his leg. Why don't you back off and go with some teeps to the body, or work on some defense, or work on some boxing, right? Leave his leg alone. You don't have that option in IKF PMT because you're going for a win. In the scrimmage like MDLs, TBASAs, and MTAs, you do have that option. And that's one of the things that separates those two sports apart also. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a big factor. So do MDLs get out of control sometimes? Yes. But as you said, like some of the PMTs do have good referees, they do change that. I've had a referee somewhere I've had to say, hey, timekeeper, 30 seconds, let's cut it off. Or I've said, guys, one more, this is the last round. If you don't settle down, I'm stopping the fight. You won't get your 3 rounds in, right?
Yeah.
And they end up slowing down.
And that comes from like the officials knowing that, or having a head official that can help control that is able to oversee, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when it comes into a smaller scale, like I've seen some of these PMT events, they're massive. There's a couple hundred people there.
Right.
It's insane. I'm like, oh man, good for them. Like,
yeah,
it's like, hey, you know, so I see why they're saying is like, hey, I'm growing the sport by doing this, right? But then there's some other things that are on the back end that it hits a roadblock, like you said, when they come into other organizations where they're counted and they're being told by one organization they don't count, and that they don't have to put them down, even though the other organization is saying put all of your experience, right? So, does it count? That's where that kind of came from, I would think. Yeah.
You know, too, when Patrick was developing the YDL with the other guys at USMF at the time, which now, as we know, is USA Muay Thai. And then after COVID, he switched to MDL to include the adults. And that's really picked up pretty big. And now he's branching out, as you know, across the country. There's many, many options now. Not as many as IKF PMTs yet, but there are a lot of options now. And I remember at first, you know, a lot of guys want to jump on the bandwagon and host a MDL. And Patrick was very selective. He didn't want to grow too fast. And some would say he's micromanaging, or it's, you know, he wants control or money or whatever it is. But really what he wanted to do is not grow out of control, which is what we're seeing happen with IKF, PMTs, and PKBs. And I firmly believe that because in order for his program, the IKF program, to run consistently across the country in the manner that Johnny has built it up or is intended to be. It starts with your foundation, your officials. It starts with a structured official program and a hierarchy. You've got to have a head, which they do. You've got to have some regional heads, which I don't know if they do or not. You've got to have state heads. You've got to be able to have event heads so that there's somebody monitoring all of that every single time on all of the levels they have. And if the referees are trained better or more thorough on safety and fair play, they will do a better job of controlling that action and not letting it get to a point of a knockout or somebody getting injured to the body, unless it truly is an accidental two heads beating on accident, and he's let it grow so fast, which is not a bad thing that it's grown so big. It's huge, but it's what's part of the problem we're facing today. And that contributes to these discussions we're having right now. And we had last night. It all comes down to going back to the root of this and formulating a solution. I don't think he's ready to do that. I've had officials from PMTs in my intensives, and I can't stop them coming into those, and they came in and they've even asked me, can you come help with our officials? Well, I haven't done that. And on one hand, there's a conflict of interest there, on the other hand, those guys need some help because at the end of the day, Muay Thai is Muay Thai and they need to be controlling that better. I had someone ask me last night, one of my own officials, that he was asked to help an area of the PMT guys for officiating. So I think Johnny Davis would be leaps and bounds ahead if he would step back and establish a serious written protocol and a instructional course that really held his officials accountable. Each time a person's knocked out, just EQing that fighter is not enough. That's half of it. Now you've got to reevaluate that official, that referee, and critique and ask, why was that allowed to happen? Was it part of your failure or was it not? We got to analyze all of those for us to move ahead and grow in the right manner.
Yes. And that kind of goes into like a lot of people think that because they fight, they're able to referee, right? But that decision making is different because you can't think like a fighter when you're officiating. That's how people get messed up, right? And it's because it's like, hey, you understand, you want to give them a chance and do that stuff, but when you're there for athlete safety, right? So I think a lot of people, it comes from a place of passion of them wanting to give back. But then it also comes into, like you said, it's been growing so fast. Any business that grows really fast is going to have issues that needs to get a damper on it, figure out, problem solve, and then adjust, right?
Right.
So I think that's definitely something that I can see happening. And I hope that any organization that experiences this or any business that experiences this takes this as a message to reassess your shit and
exactly
fix it. Right. Especially for Muay Thai, man. I we're all very passionate about it, and that's what's great. And this conversation is brought up a lot. So it's I can see that 100%. And evaluating the any potential mistakes, like looking at it, like you'd be able to look at it and be like, okay, like I think I know what happened, but I'm gonna ask them, hey, what happened? Oh, I thought. Oh, what'd you think? Okay, so hey, next time that can't happen again. Right. And share that with the group. So, and that's how you build people and encourage them when they do good again. So, that's a pretty accurate assessment on that too.
I have a how the MDLs and mine also have the report card, right? The score report evaluation. It's by the red, yellow, green. We do a red, yellow, blue, or blue, whatever it is. We have four colors in ours, but it's based on that stoplight format or structure. And JJ in 21, were you here at our place in 21 or was it before that?
2021, yes.
Okay. So JJ had brought over, he created a referee evaluation report in a similar format based off what Stefan made for the YDLs, right? Originally. and it was based on the main categories for referee, the main protocol: safety, fair play, position, movement, distance, save, all those things. There was like red, yellow, green again, or green, yellow, red, and a description of those categories. And I used them. We used them a little bit in 21, and then I was just too busy in 2 and 3 to really pull them out. But this year I'm going to use these and have some of my better officials get their feet wet as jury and use those and evaluate certain officials. By them evaluating them, they'll learn how to evaluate themselves better also, and they'll learn a lot from that itself. And I just was giving JJ kudos. It's a great idea to have the same kind of evaluation report for officials as it is for the fighters and scrimmages. And I kept that format, and I modified a little bit, but essentially the same. And we're going to try to use this a lot this year to try and evaluate officials more and have a meeting post afterwards and really break those in and go over them with them. And, you have to. Yeah,
you're such a nerd when it comes to this stuff.
I am a nerd. I just when it comes to this stuff, I am, because to me it matters because, again, we're half the fight. I don't have the book finished yet, but I will get it finished, and I think then people will know. But back to this, I was sidetracking there. So the videos we have pulled up, I made a couple little compilation because I think we can talk about it all day long.
Yeah.
Until people see what we're talking about, it's not going to really resonate.
Yes. And kind of going into it too is like, we've had fighters that have knocked people out of these things. Of course, I smacked the crap out of them. What the hell, man? Like self-control, right? But, and I ask them, and I ask anybody why'd you do that? Oh man, like I know I won regardless. It's like, yeah, like I get what you're saying, but no, you actually lost, right?
Yeah.
So,
we had an MDL. The first MDL we did like 3 Januaries ago at the Holiday Inn, and one of my teens, he was 15, 16, he got dropped, and he dipped into a little question mark kick, wasn't even thrown hard, that caught him right on the chin, and that's a button, right? We know that, and it dropped him. He got back up, but it should have been done right there, and that would have been considered a KO and probably a DQ if it was intentional, right? In this situation, because it's a scrimmage with no winner or loser, we didn't do that. But at the same time, that fighter from Chicago did that. He was like very, very apologetic. He felt horrible for dropping him. He had no intention to do that at all. As opposed to guys who do it in PMTs and walk off their hands and going, "Yeah, I won, yeah." Or coach, yeah. I mean, it's a whole different element when you're trying to win, versus when you're just trying to get evaluated and knowing you shouldn't do that. So it's a conundrum. I really meant it last night when I said that, and I didn't mean it in a bad way, when I said that I feel like Johnny Davis has created a community within the Muay Thai community, because it's just now in the last year or two starting to really branch out to other tournaments. And they have their own rule set, their own scoring criteria. He tried that last night, but he can't. I've seen it. You posted me in the comments. The screenshot, right? We know that it's different scoring for IKF. We know this. That's not Muay Thai.
For IKF PMTs, yes.
For IKF Muay Thai, it is. And that's okay. But it's just, I really feel that's what he's done. And yes, it'll grow Muay Thai as a whole to a degree. But he has tens of thousands as he says, within the PMT community. We don't have tens of thousands outside the PMT community. So it's really staying, for the most part, within itself.
Yeah. And I get it's like, well, those are the enthusiasts, right?
Yeah.
But what it comes into is it creates also a lack of understanding for athletes that do want to step up and start doing full contact. They don't understand, like someone would be like, yeah, of course, they go try to knock him out. It's like, okay, but then that doesn't always happen,
right?
As we know. So how do you win a Muay Thai fight? All right. And then here's the thing, like, in California, the state of California, CSAC, does not have the word Muay Thai in their statutes for CSAC. It's not in
Really?
there. Go find it.
Huh.
So there's a lot of weird decisions that happen because it depends on who's sitting by the ring, really.
Yeah.
Right. That's really what you get. Whereas you see a clear, this is how you win. This is how the fights are judged. You see it, same thing. PNTs has a clear one. They have clear, hey, this is how you win. This is how you win our matches.
Yeah.
The YDLs and the MDLs and the other scrimmages and all the other organizations, if they do like something where it's like, hey, this is how you win. You want to get everything green, right? This is how you win for yourself. It's not a win against your opponent, right? So, but that's how you win, right?
Yeah.
So, it creates like a, it muddies the waters a bit when it comes into development of the sport and understanding of the sport. Because if you have tens of thousands of people, great. But if they're getting the wrong information and they don't understand the information they're being given in the context it's in, then it's going to get lost. And next thing you know, you have people that are working these semi-contact events that are judging full contact as if they were the semi-contact events.
Yeah.
So, and then next thing you know, there's a lot of confusion and it's a headache.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's pull up that video.
Let's do it. Go ahead. Yeah. I have it queued up, ready to
go.
Yeah.
You asked me. That's right. I'm going to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Where are we at here? Right there.
All right.
Let's add it in.
All right. So, semi-contact event. I'll go ahead and hit play.
Boom. They slow motion it for their highlight video. As we saw, you can pause that if you want to. And that coach is very happy.
Yeah.
I mean, as he should be. He just stopped him, right? Not supposed to be a knockout, but he gets a medal afterwards.
Yes.
I don't think I kept that part in here.
No.
Did or not, but
it's a very long video because I've seen this one too.
Yeah.
But I just go through it again. Boom. So yeah, as a coach, I'd be pumped too. Yeah,
exactly. There's the medal right there. I did hold that. The other one here now, this talks about, if you can pause for a second, we talked last night about intent.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying intent to win is what the intent really is. Not everybody goes into a fight trying to knock the person out. They try to win. I never, ever went in to knock somebody out. I wasn't a knockout guy. I was a counter fighter. I knocked out 2 my whole career. That's it.
Yeah.
And that was just lucky. But I went in to win any way I could, outpoint them, outscore them, whatever, damage them, but not. So in this fight here, while it's not a knockout or a strike that you would a simple or normal traditional KO, he damages him and hurts him. The intent here is like a fight. We talked last night. When your intent is to kill, damage, that's a fight. Well, let's watch this and see if there's intent to damage.
All right, here we go.
The knee to the body could have cracked ribs. We don't know, but this guy cannot get up. Now I don't know, obviously, if that guy got DQ'd or not. Doesn't matter. This clearly shows the intent of a fight. If someone thinks that should not be counted, they're nuts, and that's the conundrum. Sorry to cut you off. That's a conundrum because the inconsistency is there across the board for these PMTs. Great events, control events, and then out of control events. And how do you determine, trying to vet fighters for their correct division, how do you determine, well, in that PMT in California, in Sacramento, it was all controlled, so you're okay, you don't count those. But down in San Diego, that was a shit show. We're counting every one of those.
Yeah, how do you
that fighter was at both places. So that's what you're realizing.
You kind of have to blanket. It's just like, hey, they all count, right?
Exactly. If it's a win or loss, we're counting that. There's no other way to do it because of this inconsistency in the conundrum.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into, like you said, on like the win or loss thing. But here's the thing: is like we used to do smokers, right? And there wouldn't always be a win or a loss there, but we count those too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and someone brought this up. And it was a good point. It's like, hey, yeah, they are in the same category. Like I was telling you, like we started doing these once smokers went away in California. So, but the thing is, there's not tens of thousands of people doing smokers. And so those like that filtration into full contact that end up at your tournament, end up at Thiago's tournament and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
It's you get more and more of it than you do with somebody who the oddball that has 10 smokers nowadays, where that used to be way more common. And that used to be the person that was sandbagging. Right. So you want me to hit play on this next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
So this is coming up here is little girls, and they are hitting like men. Now, kudos to the girl in the white headgear. She's holding her own, but that is not semi-contact.
No.
I think the referee at one point does say something to the girl in the black headgear, the red uniform, but just one time. Look at that head getting snapped back at 8, 9 years old. Yeah. Little girls. How do you not count that as a fight? Now, that was that extreme, right?
Yeah.
As Johnny alluded last night. Well, yeah, some fights get out of control, and this might have been there. No, Johnny, it was there. But that's the thing, as we just discussed. When you have even a small percentage get like this, it downplays the rest, and you have to count. You cannot not count that.
Yeah. It messes up your program too.
At the same time, the total other end of the spectrum with the PMTs is what you're going to see now. I went to a PMT, took my kids finally to one in Kansas City. And one of our guys who comes to the tournaments here, Brian Carroll. Yeah, great guy. You know him?
Yes. Yeah, I've talked to him. He treated me like I was his brother like the first day I met him.
So humble. Yeah, so humble. I love him. And he's fought on our cars before. Plus, he has a tournament every year. And so he started doing PMTs. And nothing's down there for him. Started doing them. And Chad Mueller out of the St. Louis area is running them for him, and he's hosting. It was only their third one. So it's small. So for the kids, there's not a lot of options, right? Just like in other MDLs. So they aren't matched on skill algorithms like the AGLs and the whatever like MDLs are on their skill levels. They're matched by their weight class and age. And then Chad was actually matching them all coming forward to his table before the thing went. And you look at them. Okay, you and you, and you and you. And they only were 4-man brackets. So you're only going to get 2 fights max anyway. But 2 of my kids couldn't get an equal match. They had kids older and bigger. And the one you'll see here, Tien, had a kid that was a little heavier but same height, but brand new, nothing. And Tien has had a lot of MDLs. He won our tournament last year. He looked like Rod Tang in there. The kid's really developed good. And so he had to back it way down, and he's used to doing that from the MDLs. He knows how to control that, right? So if you play this really quick.
All right. Go ahead and hit play.
Yeah. So we got a couple clips of this. My kid's in the green striped and the blue gloves. So he's just lightly, I mean, it's nothing heavy at all. Here's the other part of it. This is like even lighter than semi-contact. You know, they're not going hard at all. No one's getting hurt. Tien is touching him.
Hey, I see a chest protector too.
Yeah, they don't actually.
Well, it looks like your student's opponent has one though.
Does he?
Yeah, he does.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, black chest protector.
Well, that was his choice to wear one, I think.
Yeah.
They weren't required to wear them.
Got it.
Which is another thing here too. But I get back to my point on that is because we count them, that had to be counted.
Yeah.
And it was clearly he spars in the gym harder than that.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, but I've got to count them as our rules, right? So that's part of the inconsistency we have. Chad Mueller is really controlling, almost over controlling the level of power, but he wants not and then get out of control. I watched every fight there. One guy got out of control and he stopped it right away. So he's not letting anyone get hurt. But at the same time, that's why I said you should take away the incentive to win. Give them the medal, give them the evaluation report, help them develop. But why would you have a winner or loser out of a fight like this? But yet those 2 girls we watched, You would have, because they were going
Yeah.
for it, right? Two different ends of the spectrum. And that's a conundrum that he's created with this point system where they win or lose option or incentive.
Yeah, and it's kind of turned into a blanket thing where, hey, these are all counting,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. But
and
it has
that's
to, and that's
and
unfortunate.
yeah, and it's like very man. Like I've had to sit at the table and I've had people working weigh-ins. They hand you the stuff and it's like this is everything you have, right? And they put 0 smokers, 0 semi-contact. It has like every acronym in the book that could be on there.
Yeah.
And they put 0, and I say, hey, do you have any semi-contact experience? I'll just ask to be sure. And they're like, oh yeah, I do. I'm like, oh, well, you didn't put it down here, put it down. And it'll be like, oh, I had 5. We had one kid that had like 22 one time.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's like, well, I was like, oh, why didn't you put these down there? And they're like, well, all right, like either I was told they don't count, my coach said they don't count these things, and it becomes an education thing because like when an organization says, hey, these don't count, what they mean is, hey, we don't count these, right? But other people that are involved and they travel, Ryan from USMTO brought this up. It's like, hey, we're not just in our little state. Everybody travels. So
right.
Especially in our sport. So like people have to have more education in educational content and stuff like this that is given out. So that way they know. And honestly, I think that if that was more known through every organization that does these, and whether it be a takeaway, like especially for the kids to give to the parents, hey, please read through this. And the coaches, hey, please read through this. So that way you understand what you're doing and what the implications are, because we all talk. Right? People think, oh, I'm going to Iowa. Like they go to Iowa from Arizona. They think like, oh, they don't talk to Pete and Pam. It's like, well, no, actually they do. Right. And they go look it up like, oh shit, there's a podcast with them. Damn. So it really comes into a communication thing amongst regulators and regulations in different states. And the other thing too is like, these ones with these knockouts that happen. Like I've done these. We didn't get medical suspensions. I had a guy who snapped his bicep tendon at one. He didn't get a medical suspension. We took him to the doctor. Yeah, we went to the hospital and then he had to get surgery. So it's like I don't know if that's changed. I do see that they have like it looked like a nurse or something like that on the side. And I have a friend who works this where there's a couple hundred people and she's the only one there sometimes. And it's like because I think a lot of it is volunteer based. So I don't know if that creates inconsistencies or if they have because they have I believe they have it so it's like they have the sanctioning and then they have the promoter. But I don't know if they're the same. I don't know if they're separate or if they're friends. I have no idea. But like it comes into that inconsistencies and stuff like that too. And I've as you grow, you have these issues.
You do.
Yeah.
You just hit something there too that I didn't even think about. And I don't want to make an assumption on what Johnny is or is not doing with the IKF PMTs. But if a fighter is getting knocked out, which we know happens, whether it's small percentage or not, if they are getting knocked out, they have an ambulance there or wherever they have. I don't know what they have there for medical staff. I don't know. But
I've never seen an ambulance at one before.
Okay, probably just a nurse practitioner or whatever, because they're supposed to be semi-contact, so they shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yes,
but
exactly.
If those fighters that are getting knocked out, those few, if they're not getting medical suspension, that's a liability waiting to happen. And that's 100%. Dangerous. That's tough. I would hope that'd be something they would be keeping track of as well. I would hope.
Yes.
If not, it needs to be done. Not that I can say that you do this, but it needs to be done.
Yeah, no, it would be great to see more people get on board with this. Whether they realize they were doing it or not doesn't matter. It's just like, hey, try like if you listen to this and you work in this, like if you could figure out a way to do it, freaking do it. And don't make it self-reported. That's the thing. I remember it was in California. There's a fighter who was fighting on the Indian reservation and he died because he had a brain bleed. He got knocked out, and I think he fought like 2 weeks later for CSAC. They didn't know he got knocked out.
Yeah,
because it's just like being in another state when you go to Indian reservation. For those of you that might be listening or watching, you work at Indian reservation. They usually do not have a athletic commission there. Sometimes there's no sanctioning body that upholds any of the suspensions, medical suspensions for the fighter safety. Because I'll say it, when I was fighting, there was some great times where people were like, "Hey, no." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, no, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like that, because when you're fighting, you want it. Like, yeah, of course I want to do that. I don't care if the guy's 15 pounds heavier than me. Yeah, I want to fight him. But that's what the organizations are there for, is for the safety.
Exactly right.
I mean, I haven't. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just something like I always like to mention to people, because not a lot of people understand these intricacies of this,
Right.
and what an like a sanctioning body is, what a state athletic commission is, and then what a promoter is. They're all three separate things.
Right.
Sometimes the state athletic commission is a sanctioning body, or they use another delegated entity. Like in California, they have Wacko Kickboxing for kickboxing. They have IKF that does Muay Thai and kickboxing. So
I think the coach should be included in there, because a coach should be stopping a fighter from taking a fight too if they've had trauma too close, right? And some won't, or the fighters, like you said, they just want to fight. We all are going to say, "No, I'm fine, dude. I'm fine. Let me fight." But in reality, you're not. I don't know if you heard the story or not, but a few years back here, we were sanctioning Minnesota for several years, TBSA, and I was refereeing in, I believe it was April or June, whatever it was, May. Anyway, I was refereeing up there, and Nate Kosberg from the Striking Institute, he was fighting. He had a banger fight, and he got 8 counted twice. He lost the fight. It was a hard fight. He passed a post-fight physical. There was no suspension. He passed it. It was good. And that doctor up there is top-notch. So no fault by him at all. It's a married couple that does it, and they're great. So he didn't go to the doctor. He wasn't allowed to spar for a couple weeks in the gym. He then was back in training, or not in the gym at all. Then back in the gym training, a couple more weeks he could spar. And I don't know what happened after that as far as sparring goes. I'm told it was light, and they kind of washed him, but there was no check at a doctor for any possible concussion at all afterwards, because he passed that post-fight physical and took his time off. He thought he needed to take off. Well, it was almost right at 90 days when he fought again up there, and I'm refereeing it again. And this fight was even more of a banger, but he never went down. He never showed signs of an 8 count, neither one. But it's almost like they were, if you high school, you trade punches in the arm in high school. Yeah. You get bruised the most, It's like they were hitting the head, trying to see who could take it the most and not even defend it. It's like, here, hit me. Here, hit me. Yeah. It was just,
just banging it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing this, refereeing, going, holy shit. Oh my God. I'm not showing that, but I'm thinking it because it was hard shots. And they both were fine. No 8 counts, no signs of an 8 count. The fight's over. Nate lost a decision. He passes the post-fight physical again. He walks down the stairs in the locker room, and within 5 minutes, is incoherent. Up on the stretcher, out of the ambulance right away. The surgeon said that he had a brain bleed, that if it had been 5 more minutes, he might have been dead. Yeah. So thank God he get the ambulance right there to them. And he's not fighting anymore. He spars, no head contact. He's fine, but had his skull taken apart. So what they told us was that had it been a 5-round fight, I would have seen that. I would have seen signs. But a 3-round fight, the brain bleeds slow, depending on when it happened, I wasn't going to see it. And also why the doctor didn't see it afterwards for the physical as well. It took time to really hit.
Yeah, it takes like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, when it did, he was done.
Weird shit. Yeah.
And so I just had a fighter fight an MMA fight here about a month ago now. And he lost a fight decision, but it was his first one, but his face was just like swollen and beat up. You ever see that movie, The Elephant Man, the movie with the Cher and the kid? Yeah. It wasn't that bad, but around the eyes, it was getting close to that. Yeah. And he didn't feel pain. It just swelled up. He took a lot of hard shots on the ground. And so he was going to fight the tournament in 3 weeks. And I said, nah, you're not. You're not even going to spar for 4 weeks. And he'll get a spar to the head lightly this coming Sunday. It'll be 4 weeks. And I'm going to evaluate him. But I didn't let him come to the tournament at all in 3 more weeks, just because of that fact. He needs a break from his head. So
yeah. And that comes into some, you'd think it would be common sense. But
you'd think
this whole thing with the brain injury, there's still a lot of people who are doing what we were doing 20 years ago, Pete.
Yeah.
The education now with officiating, with rules and regulations in Muay Thai, with communication and education, that you can learn. There's more of it coming to the US through all these different organizations. The opportunity to go travel to Thailand has never been easier to go do and learn.
Right.
You can learn Thai online. It's free. Duolingo is great. So kind of going on the extremes of these too, like you were talking about, like it's kind of on the coach and there's inconsistencies on events. Can you share my screen real quick? I want to just bring this up here.
Yeah.
So this was something that happened up in Canada. And in Canada I think is in British Columbia. So this happened at a semi-contact event that was ran by a karate organization up in Canada. So from my understanding, I talked to the lawyer, Eric McCracken. He works with the athletic commission, or the equivalent of the athletic commission up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been talking to him quite a bit since I saw this, and we've been doing what we can to kind of promote this. So if anybody's watching this, you can look it up. It's Lei Zhenhuan's family. So this money, he's back in China. So he was basically an exchange student going to university in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
He picked up kickboxing and training, and he went to a semi-contact event. And apparently, I think in the first fight, there was no vetting process of this person. And they had somebody who had a couple fights over at some of the stadiums in Thailand. Like, there's the Canadians are sleepers sometimes. Like, like, who is this? Right. Oh, he just got back. He'd been in Thailand for 2 years. So apparently he took a lot of headshots and actually had gotten knocked down. And then the other fighter, I think, probably got disqualified.
Yeah.
And they let him compete again. This guy competed again. His second fight, he was taking more damage again. I guess he passed out, and then he just never woke up since. So going into having proper medical care, the coaches, the sanctioning, the organizations, like everything across the board has to have certain things checked. Otherwise, stuff like this becomes more common.
Right.
Right.
100%.
And that's the thing too, is like, who's to say you didn't go do a semi-contact thing where it was a complete banger, and you might be like this guy you're talking about, he had a brain bleed and he didn't even know it. Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he goes in the fight and passes out, and we have another one of these unfortunate situations.
Right.
So,
right.
For this one too, what ended up happening is the organizers are getting sued, the venues getting sued, all the officials are individually getting sued, the promoters getting sued, and the sanctioning organization is getting sued as well. Like everybody. And I believe also the coach of the guy who did this too.
Yeah.
So, and the fighter, because it's like, hey, like it's semi-contact, right? So there's implications. I think there was also there was a fight in Las Vegas, and I believe a fighter ducked down and got kneed in the face during an amateur fight. And the insurance was having issues, so the kid ended up suing his opponent in order to get access, because that gives you access to the insurance from it. I don't know what his injuries were or whatever, but he had to sue. He sued the opponent, but the thing is, the event insurance was there, covers that. So, but you have to, it looks like you're suing the opponent, but actually to get the access to the insurance. So there's so many things here that a lot of people don't realize. Like you're saying, you're writing a book about like how important some of this shit is. And I think people really don't understand. And it comes into, this could have been prevented with some competent, I don't know who's coaches. I don't know all the details.
Right.
But situations like this, typically lack of proper training, ring officials, lack of safety protocols, no doctor on site or like medical staff, ambulance, right? Also, the coach not having the education of what they're getting into. So, like I was telling you with our kids, we brought kids to a semi-contact event and they're getting creamed, bloody nose, and all this stuff. So maybe this guy thought it was going to be a little bit lighter. I don't know.
Maybe, or the guy that did it was just in Thailand mode. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, like I was saying, we had guys who've knocked people out in the semi-contact stuff before, and it was like, man, what are you doing? That's not how you win. And he's like, oh, I just had to go. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, they get the moment.
He's not. I know they're not the only one, is what I'm getting at. So I just had to mention that if anybody's out there like to support on that, because I know they still need donations, because it's a single Chinese mom.
That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing everything she can. It was like her one success. The kid was going to university, right? So not to get Debbie Downer on it. Yeah, and it's like, and then that's taken away, right? So for anybody that's listening out there, like this is truly what all this stems from, that everybody that's talking about these things, this is cases like this is why. Because it's not a matter if, it's when it happens. It's
Yeah, so I
tragedy.
it's when.
Yeah. I mean, it happened at tournament in Florida, where they didn't have an ambulance on site.
I can't.
I'm not gonna
I'm sorry, I just did it. Everybody knows anyway.
Yeah, well, but I think a lot of people don't know about it. And it
Okay.
was a learning experience for their organization at the time.
Yes. Yes.
And it was like some other organizations required it. They did not have an ambulance on site. And this is why it's required. And that's one of the heaviest bills for a promoter, is to have an ambulance. It costs like $2,500, $4,000 to have them there the whole day. So
yeah, you look at it like $12,000 for a big tournament like ours. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's not. But the thing is, that's at the end of the day. Yeah, and that's where. So if people see, the tournament's charging more, now you know why. All right, because it's for your guys' safety, and they want to make it happen, and it's important for people.
Even the right type medical staff too. So I've had events where I've been to fighters that a gynecologist was a fight doctor. I mean, come on, dude.
I had one.
I've seen it where there was nurse practitioners or not nurses' aides. I've had a chiropractor. I've seen a show where that was the fight doctor, and they need to be DO or MD. And I mean, when ambulances come, there's basic and there's whatever, and a lot of them have basic, which are EMTs, not the right equipment. Paramedics are crucial. We have 12 at our tournament. And they can do anything you're gonna do in an emergency room. I mean, without being in an emergency room, they're gonna stabilize, they're gonna be ready to go. And it's important you have the right medical staff there to make the decisions that need to be made. Absolutely. That's crucial. That's critical.
Yeah. And that's kind of like where this comes into is for people who are doing these, there's a lack of consistency on some of it. And that's why that's why when they say should they be counted on their records, hey, should this count? Like, should this be considered in the matchmaking process? I think everybody agrees that it should, but the problem is the lack of reporting the suspensions. If a fighter's suspended, I know you guys all talk to each other. Like, I know all these organizations talk to each other with suspensions because they take that shit seriously.
Yeah.
Right. Like, everybody takes that shit seriously. So
we call IKF. We used to call Steve. We used to call Tiago or Bob. We call Corley even. Now they have their things going on. And we find out
like Iska, Corey Schaefer, and all them. It's like because no one wants that on their hands, knowing like, oh fuck, I missed that, right? And you're at somebody's funeral. So, but that's the nature of the sport. Like that's why they got you there. They got people like me. Like for pro, the goal. Bob said this, and I'll parrot him. The goal is to let him get as close to dying as possible, right? And keep it safe. So an amateur is like, hey, we want to get you there. So we want to make sure like you're good to go and can continue to fight for many years to come. And I know you've seen people step up. You had Luke Losay come up through your tournaments as a kid. Yeah. And now you're fighting on one and shit. So it's like,
I feel old.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome, man. Hey,
he was 7. He was 7.
Yeah. Man, you guys, all the old heads. But that's it. Was there anything else, Pete?
No, we've been over an hour now. And I think we kind of covered things I wanted to cover more in depth that wasn't banter back and forth, debating things, I just want to clarify some things as to why we count and the conundrum that is created with this whole situation. And we need to find a way to hopefully work together in the future with Johnny or somebody to create a solution or a mutual agreement of some sort. But anyway, I appreciate
just like with the suspensions, right? You guys have like a mutual agreement on it. Like there needs to be something like that. And thanks for having me on today, man. I appreciate it. And thanks for what you do. Anybody else that's listening, support your local Muay Thai academy, support your local fighter, your local promotion, your referees, tell them, hey, good job. Cause they get everything thrown at them.
They get hammered.
And a lot of them are volunteers. So, and they do everything they can to really help support and make this a safe platform for you guys to be able to go fight and do your thing.
Thanks for coming on, Jonathan. That is a wrap for this episode of Muay Thai Chat. And I will talk to you later. I'm going to end the recording now. See y'all Peace out. Thank you, sir.